So today I am here with Josh Zello, and Josh is the family ministry director at Redemption City Church. So really excited to chat today, Josh.
I'm excited too.
Awesome. So yeah, we were just talking a bit about your background, but what called you into ministry to begin with, and how did you find your way to Redemption City in Baltimore?
Yeah, so a very long story made short. Um, I had always known that I want to work with kids. And when I was
Hmm.
about 15, thought, well, I should go make sure that I really do like kids first before I just go all
Yeah.
in, right?
Hmm.
You hear
Absolutely.
these horror stories of somebody like, I have a master's in early childhood and I don't like kids. Well,
Oh man.
so I was like, I'm going to go volunteer with kids, and I tried the school
Yeah.
route first because I had assumed my
Hmm.
whole life I was going to teach first grade. And
Hmm.
for some reason, this school was just not fast to take volunteers. So I
Hmm.
looked around and thought, well, there's kids' church at my local church. So volunteered there and just fell in love with kids ministry. Saw it done really
Hmm.
well. This was at a huge
Awesome.
church.
Yeah.
And I just saw gospel-centered, excellent kids ministry done really well. And
Hmm.
my first day there, my heart just lit up, and I thought, you know what, this is it. This is what I want to do.
Awesome.
So my whole life changed right then. That pastor mentored me, hired me, gave me my first full-time job when I was
Oh
19.
wow. Yeah.
I worked at that
Awesome.
church for 10 years.
Okay.
So that
Yeah.
church, Community Bible Church in San Antonio,
Yeah.
really, yeah, morphed me into who I am now. And they actually sent me out to go be a preschool pastor at a church about 45 minutes down the road from there. And
Okay.
CBC is really
Awesome.
good at training up and sending out, and that's what they did there.
Yeah.
And I served at that church in a small town right outside of the city for about 3 years. And
Hmm.
um, as is so with a lot of us, COVID really took a toll on that church. So
Yeah.
when we stepped back and thought,
Hmm.
okay, this is not going to be our long-term home. Where do we want
Hmm.
to go? What do we want to do? And we prayed through it and thought, there's a lot of tools that I've learned in the Bible Belt
Yeah.
and mega church land that
Uh-huh.
would be really, really helpful in a place that just desperately needs Jesus. And
Mm-hmm.
Baltimore is a very, very unchurched place. Uh,
Hmm.
we're a large church here, and we run 300 to 400, and we're a
Oh
large
wow.
church.
Yeah.
Um, as we've looked around, I'm not sure if this is still true, but when they hired me in 2022, I was the first full-time kids pastor in Baltimore.
Oh wow. The whole city?
Huge. Yeah.
Wow.
So as far as we can find, we've looked for him.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. If anybody hears this and is one, I really want to be friends.
Awesome.
Um, yeah, but we actually found this through Acts 29, the church planting network. Uh,
Hmm.
I knew that, okay, they're one that does plant in hard hard places. So
Yeah.
I just went to acts29.com/jobs, and this was the first
Uh-huh.
job I applied. Um, I support raised most of my salary, and we
Awesome.
picked up our 1 year old child and moved up here. So
Oh
that was in
wow.
2022. And
Yeah.
God has really blessed that. My first week here, we had 17 kids. Last
Oh
week,
wow.
we had 90 kids. So we've
Wow.
seen tremendous growth in just 2 years in a
Yeah.
hard place.
Oh yeah. Well, that's a lot, Josh, and really bold and exciting to, especially with hey, you have a 1 year old, you're moving across the country, and you are really pioneering some stuff, probably based on the that growth you had in your kids ministry that hadn't been tried at your church. It might be new for Baltimore as a community. So. That's very cool. Want to pull on some threads there. So, yeah, Community Bible Church of San Antonio. They are a Playlister customer. Love the
Hey,
team down there. Yeah, small world, small world. So it's very cool. And as you mentioned, there is probably it seems like a different mindset of church leaders based on the community in a place that's very church like Texas, where you have a lot of people going to church, where churches can really get to a large size and be very impactful in their community, very vibrant, versus in some areas where it's harder to cultivate that. You might just have lower gatherings, lower land to build church. So there's a whole lot of factors. Like, what were some of the biggest changes you saw in moving from like San Antonio and CBC to Redemption City and becoming more involved in the Baltimore community?
Yeah, I had to learn really fast, and that meant that the first year was very hard
Mm-hmm.
because we had just found the soil here is super tough.
Hmm.
And part of that is because of Baltimore's church history, especially with the Catholic Church.
Mm-hmm.
Trust is below zero with church. So in the
Mm-hmm.
South, people just, even now, generally trust church, meaning if
Mm-hmm.
you have a church-wide event and you invite your city to come in, if there's free
Mm-hmm.
food and free childcare, people will come.
Yeah.
Yeah, but here, in my first 6 months here, I spent a lot of time and we built up this big childcare date night event. And this is
Mm-hmm.
an event that worked down south of
Oh
us
yeah.
saying, hey, anybody can sign up. This is free. We're going to feed your kids. We're going to have like a Pixar movie night. And you go on a date night and we will give you free childcare. And
Mm-hmm.
we had zero kids come.
Oh wow.
I brought in like an outside out of state mission team for this event. And we just sat
Uh-huh.
there and zero kids came.
Oh man.
And what I found really fast was that since trust was so low in the Big C church, we had to get out
Mm-hmm.
there and build goodwill so that we could share the good news. We can't just
Mm-hmm.
expect a place like this, everybody just pour in through our front doors. We have to step out
Mm-hmm.
and build that trust and say, hey, we are for you. You can trust us.
Mm-hmm.
We love you. That's why we're here. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and part of that is because in a place like this, secularism really is kind of like a faith. So think about
Mm-hmm.
it. I don't know if you have kids, but if there was a mosque down the street that had a free childcare night, they might be
Mm-hmm.
lovely, but you're probably not going to drop off your kids to it. And here,
Mm-hmm.
folks tend to think that same way. So we've had to make a
Mm-hmm.
big deal about through things like we now run a community playground, that there is like 900 Baltimore kids that are attached to that park.
Oh
And
wow.
we run that and we run monthly events there. We have a preschool story time that's secular books and crafts, but us just saying, hey, we're
Mm-hmm.
for you, come on in. We're doing things like we have a fall fest this week, and that's going to be us stepping out and like handing out glow sticks and snacks on the
Yeah.
street. So we've had to think outside of the box of how can we build that bridge of trust.
Yeah. Yeah, the bridge of trust is important, and I think you hit the nail on the head there, Josh, with the kind of mosque analogy and the secular stuff is because in very churched areas we might take it for granted that everyone's aware that the church is here for them. Because like you said, hey, secularism in some parts of the world and country are really more akin to a religion and a way of thought. Um, than a lot of us might feel comfortable understanding. So it's like, hey, how can we build a bridge to reach those people? And one thing it seems like, yeah, doing a lot of stuff with the parks, the community arts and crafts that might be. It's like, hey, we might scare people away with some things if we try to do like, hey, we tried an event that worked great in Texas, did not work at all in Baltimore. So it's not really like compromise. It's trying new things. It's almost like we're testing things. So when it comes to building a bridge in the community, what are some specific things that you found worked really well for y'all to do that?
Yeah, so one thing is just being real even outside of the church to connect with
Mm-hmm.
um those who have kids. So for us, that works out well
Yeah.
because here the park is a huge deal. So
Mm-hmm.
almost every day I take my child to the park after work, and while she
Mm-hmm.
plays and I talk with moms and dads, every time it leads to, hey, what brought you here? What do you do? and I
Hmm.
can share some of that and I can share my faith there. And
Yeah.
then what I do very purposefully is I don't push, I invite. So I
Hmm.
invite not, hey, you should come to our church. I invite, hey, we should set up a play date with our kids and
Hmm.
come to our house and we'll cook and we'll host you. And they know that I work for church and they're almost stepping back thinking, huh, he's not pushing for us to come to his church. No,
Hmm.
I'm purposefully showing, hey, I'm for you. We love you. We can trust you. And because of that, or you can trust us. And because of that, what we've seen is there's now kids who are part of City Kids at RCC um,
Hmm.
who first encountered our church through friendships built like that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that is so important, and it's really going back to kind of the roots of the church, like in very early in Christianity, when Christianity was growing, in the very early days after the disciples, it was people getting together in homes. So it's like, yeah, there weren't really as much church buildings to invite people to, so people invited people to their homes. So
And
that's
the
great.
church, real quick, the church, because of that, does that really, really well. And we've
Hmm.
had friends that we've made. I think of a family that we met at the Paw Patrol film last year.
Uh,
And our
yeah.
kids played throughout the whole film and ran around and made a lot of noise, but it was just us. So we were like, this is great. And
Uh,
at the end, the dad gave me his card and we engaged friendship with them. And
hmm.
I think of them who they've told me they have zero interest in faith. They've been in
Hmm.
our home countless times. Um, we've babysat their kids. And what they've said
Hmm.
is, wow, you've been really quick to engage us. And you've been really quick to invite us to your home and to cook and to host and to show what you and I know as gospel hospitality.
Hmm. Oh yeah, that is very important, and it's really interesting to think about things that way. Is like, hey, well, the gospel hospitality, that's also just being a great neighbor, a great person in your community. So, like, it's our responsibility as Christians because that's really just moving the entire community forward. And there's a lot of great stuff there. And yeah, so that's very cool. And I want to kind of segue with that, Josh, because you mentioned your kids ministry has grown from like 17 kids to 90 something kids. So with that, volunteers. So it's you're in an area where it's not the South anymore. So it's like, hey, how do you recruit volunteers? Is that a bit different than it was in Texas? Like, what are you seeing there?
It is. So what I saw back in the South was that most plugged in and serving in kids ministry were parents.
Hmm. Hmm.
And here
Hmm.
that's not so. We have a very young church, so we're very close to Johns Hopkins.
Yeah.
So a
Okay.
lot of our church are medical school students
Hmm.
and people who love kids but have, because of school, put off having kids,
Hmm.
or
Hmm.
work with kids professionally in the medical field. Uh,
Hmm.
I think of one, a pediatric oncologist on my team, who says, I
Hmm.
love that week after week here at at RCC, I get to serve with healthy kids.
Yeah.
I get
Absolutely.
to serve kids having great days.
Hmm.
Um, so I have had to flip, okay, I'm not just equipping parents. I think parents now are probably less than 20% of my team.
Really? Okay.
Most of my team are not parents. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, so we've had to engage there of, okay, we really need to work hard to point to the why because
Hmm.
parents know, okay, kids ministry is discipleship. But if you're not
Hmm.
a mom and you're not a dad, you might have to be led there more of, okay, yes, this is really high quality childcare, but we have to be more than that too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because it's like you said, if it's not the default things for the community, yeah, I think you really found a way being close to Johns Hopkins there, and a lot of people that don't have kids that are great with kids can serve. So yeah, that's really interesting. With that, do you see like a lot of uh like do you have a lot of ministry in college age groups and young adults as well, or like what are some other differences you've noticed between just how things are usually in Texas and then your like other just ministries at Redemption City?
Yeah, so the biggest challenge here that's new is that we're a crazy transient church. And that's
Mm-hmm.
because of, since probably 60% of our church is from Hopkins. And
Oh
because of
wow.
that, um, they stay like a max 3 years,
Mm-hmm.
which is really hard even when you think about volunteer training. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I spend week after week training volunteers who are going to leave, and some of them next month, some of them in 3 years. But most of them will not be here in a year and a half. I think of my
Mm-hmm.
core leadership team, most of them have plans to leave at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I've done is I've had to think through, okay, it's not just my job to train them. It's my job to challenge them to find their one, to train somebody to fill their spot. Um, my long-term dream is that every time that a volunteer steps off, somebody steps into their place that they've raised up, that they've trained up.
Yeah,
And I in the
absolutely.
South really didn't have to think about that.
Mm-hmm.
Here, even as I think through like discipleship strategy, birth through 12th grade, the chances of like somebody being here from birth to 12th grade that's not a pastor's kid is really low.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm still going to think through that. But as I think through that, I need to be real with, okay, the chances are I'm going to have a child join us when they're 2 and leave when they're 5, or join us when they're 10 and
Mm-hmm.
leave when they're 12.
Yeah. Okay, and that's interesting because one of the key things a lot of people in kids ministry mention is, hey, even if going from birth to 12th grade, that's still a narrow window of time. But you're like, hey, 3 years is probably the max for us here. So with that, does that change like the curriculum strategy and what you focus on to say, hey, how can we inspire and equip these kids as they go wherever they might go, or these college students maybe moving to a new city after graduation to then get involved in church there, or maybe continue their path in ministry in some capacity? Like, does that change that, or what do you kind of think there?
It absolutely does. That's actually what led us here. So
Hmm.
that's what led us to connect with you guys is we
Hmm.
just made a big curriculum change. I'm going to
Hmm.
name names. Everybody's great.
Yeah.
So we were using Gospel Project,
Yeah.
and they're
Hmm.
great. But what they do is their plan is they go through the entire Word of God in 3 years,
Hmm.
which means that you'll have months that you're just in, let's say, prophets,
Hmm.
and you'll have 3 to 4 months of that, or you'll have 3 to 4 months if you're in the Pentateuch. And what we
Hmm.
found is that when we have kids who sometimes are here for just a few weeks or just a few months, that really didn't make much sense because what we found was that kids were just being taught this much scripture. So we had to make a
Hmm.
change and say, okay, we're going to move to hi-fi, which
Yeah.
does a nice job of, okay, they're going to pull from several parts of God's word
Uh-huh.
so
Yeah.
that kids can get a more round, robust view um, of God's word. And then that is on a 1 year scope and not a 3 year scope. 3 year scope
Hmm.
is ambitious here. Uh,
Hmm.
1 year scope makes more sense, even if we have kids who are here in a year. Now, let's just fast forward a year from now when we're doing the same main point that we're doing now. Most of my kids will be changed.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
so that just makes sense there. And then as we think about sending out those who are not kids, sending out college kids, sending out moms and dads, um, every single church family membership meeting is us sending folks out, which is deeply sad and does
Hmm.
get tiresome. But we're constantly trying to think through how can we impart tools to them right now that they're going to take and bless the socks off of their next church. How cool would it
Absolutely.
be as we're just constantly sending folks out that if there's a church that hears, oh, you're from RCC? Great. We love y'all. Every time that somebody comes to our church from here, they bless us. Come on in.
Awesome. Yeah, that is a great idea mindset to have around those things, Josh. Because yeah, you're sending, and the things we discussed today, I think, are super impactful, and I'm excited to see what continues happening. And I'm rooting for that. Like, hey, you're from RCC, come on in. So that's very exciting to hear. And I'm curious, like, what are some of your just other goals? Because we kind of touched on some of the challenges you faced at RCC, and what are just some of your goals, both short term and long term?
Yeah, so short term, right now, I'm really leaning into being obsessed with our why. Uh,
Mm,
what
mm-hmm,
I've found is that just in the past 6 months, I had built a team that let's rewind six months back, um, really knew why we were here, and everything was fueled
mm,
from that. And most of
mm-hmm.
that team, when the school year was done, left and moved. And now I
Okay.
have a new team that has stepped in. And just
Mm,
last week, when I stepped back and thought through my Q4 goals, I thought, you know what, this team, they're not fueled by the why. So I
mm,
kind of have to start fresh with, hey, here's why we do what we do. Because I'm starting to sense burnout, morale being just a bit down. Um, Not
mm.
red flags, but yellow flags that I'm saying, okay, you
Okay.
know what? Right now, our short-term goals are not going to be more growth. We don't need that. That will come. Right now, our short-term goals need to be team health and really
Mm,
leaning in there on retaining a team that loves being there and want to invite their friends to come in and join them. Um,
absolutely.
Long term, we're constantly trying to think, how can we be a beacon of light to a dark place? Um,
Mm-hmm,
those of you who are not from here, you have heard things about Baltimore. I know it. Some of those things are true. Some of those things are blown up. Um,
mm-hmm,
But with that being said, we really want to be a beacon of light here that even those who aren't engaged with our church can point to RCC, can point to City Kids and say, hey, you can trust them. They're going to love you well. Um, and concretely, what that looks like for me, I'm trying to think through how can I be like the kids pastor of Baltimore? How can I be out in schools and
mm-hmm.
in parks and
Yeah.
kind of like a community pastor in a sense?
Mm-hmm. Wow, yeah, that is a big undertaking being the community kids pastor, and I'm rooting for you though, Josh. So that's super exciting, great to see, and yeah, there's it's no small undertaking. So as you do that, as you focus on team health, we've shared a lot of great tips, and I know these will empower a lot of people in kids ministry, whether you're in a place where that's very churched or unchurched. But just what other advice do you have for kids ministry leaders?
Uh, I'll I'll leave you with this. Constantly be equipped. Seek to be
Mm-hmm.
equipped. Especially those of us like me. I started out really young. If
Mm-hmm.
I just try to coast from the outside, it's gonna look fine, which is problematic. Those of us who are either skilled in this or have done this for a long time, or both of those things,
Mm-hmm.
you can just get through week to week. Honestly, most will look at you and go, "Yeah, they're doing fine." Um,
Mm-hmm.
don't let fine be the standard that you hold, but really challenge yourself with, okay, I'm going to read books. I'm going to engage with podcasts like this one. Um,
Yeah.
I'm going to take steps to be challenged and to grow in this field.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great time to be in church ministry. There's
Oh
so
yeah.
much, there's books, conferences, podcasts, academies. Um, I would challenge you engage with those things and
Mm-hmm.
make that not one of those things that, oh, I'll get to that once things slow down. But no, write that into your week to week, write that into your yearly
Mm-hmm.
budget,
Yeah.
work to be equipped. Part of that, I've I've just in this past year launched JesusLovesPreschoolers.com with
Okay.
hey,
Awesome.
you know what? There's not a lot of there for early childhood leaders. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so Guys, with that, with so many more things, there are tools out there. Engage with those tools. You're not alone. It's real easy to feel like you're alone when you're
Yeah.
just behind your closed doors serving your kids and your team. Uh,
Hmm.
engage and learn and grow.
Absolutely. Yeah, that is a great thing to consider is, hey, you're not alone. Not only are you not alone, there are more resources than ever before available for you to rock and roll here. So that's awesome. I appreciate you so much for sharing so much, Josh. And know these will help kids pastors everywhere.
I'm so glad. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.